The fact that my mother was like this or my father was like this does not mean that I too must be like that. I am responsible for my life. I determine what actions I take. I determine what the outcome of my life will be. Hi guys, this is Life Lessons with Law. My name is Loretta Gerard, and on this space we like to have open, honest, authentic, heart-to-heart conversations on everything pertaining to love, life, faith, and womanhood. So if this is your first time of listening to the podcast or watching the channel, you are most welcome. And if you are a returning listener or subscriber, thank you so much for sticking with me. So today, I just want to talk about mindset and just share about how I've learned to work on my own mindset and the major shift that I had in my mindset recently. So I started this whole self-awareness, becoming a better version of myself a couple of years ago, and it's been a journey, and I have learned a lot along the way. And I'm still learning, if I'm being honest. But I think the biggest shift that happened in my mind when I started this journey was realizing that my life is my responsibility. And that the outcome of my life is dependent on my actions. And just coming to terms with the fact that I am responsible for my life and the fact that nobody's coming to save me. It was a reality check for me a few years ago, because it just suddenly dawned on me that, okay, it seems like all my life I have been waiting for someone to rescue me, for someone to listen to me, for someone to just swoop in and save me from myself. And I just realized that, oh my God, it seems like I have been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and searching for a savior, searching for a rescuer in people without realizing that, girl, it's all in your hand. It's all in your hands, and it is your responsibility. And that is one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in my life, and I dare say it's one thing that kind of jolted me to reality and made me decide that, look, okay, now I have to take my destiny into my own hands and do the work that needs to be done. Because if I'm waiting for someone to heal me, if I'm waiting for someone to do the emotional healing that I needed, then I'll be waiting a long time, because that is my responsibility. I need to take responsibility for my healing. I need to take responsibility for the outcome of my life. And yeah, so, and I think that awakening is something that a lot of people need to have, because I see a lot of people blame everything else but themselves. Everything is everybody's fault. It's somebody else's fault. It's their parents' fault. The government's fault. The partner's fault. But it feels like you're kind of outsourcing the responsibility for your life and the outcome of your life to somebody else. As much as how you were raised plays a critical role in what becomes of you, but at the same time, you have a right to choose. And it's interesting to see when people live in a way that shows that they think that they don't have an option. They think that they can't choose. But you have a right to choose. So the fact that maybe you grew up in a dysfunctional home, maybe you suffered sexual trauma or sexual abuse as a child, or maybe you just went through very harrowing experiences when you were growing up, that doesn't mean that the outcome of your life should be bad. When you become an adult, those excuses don't fly anymore. You can no longer use it as a crutch for why your life is taking a dip. You can no longer use that as an excuse for bad behavior. So at some point, you would need to grow up. At some point, you would need to take responsibility for your decisions, responsibility for your life, right? So I think that is the greatest mindset shift to have. That is the first place to start from. I heard the story, someone told a story of two boys. I'm not sure where I heard this, but it's a story that has been in my mind for a long time. There are two boys. One was a drunkard. Is drunkard a word? Well, one was a drunk. One was a drunk, and the other was not a drunk. But their father was a drunk. One day, someone asked both boys, so the one who's a drunk, why are you a drunk? And he said, well, I'm a drunk because my father was a drunk, and that's what I saw him doing. And so this is how I was raised. This is all I saw. And then they asked the other boy, why are you not a drunk? And he said, well, I'm not a drunk because I saw my father. My father lived that life. And because I saw him do that, and I saw the effect of what that lifestyle had on me, my brother, our mother, I swore that I would never be like that. I swore that I would have a different outcome. So I ensured that I did not live that lifestyle. It's intriguing to see how two people who have the same experience are having two different outcomes. Someone can decide that because this happened, because I lived through this, or because I experienced this, I'm deciding to have a different outcome. Human beings have this beautiful, unique power that distinguishes them from animals. And that's the freedom to choose. That's that ability where we can use our minds. Like, we can decide that I'm not going to end up like that. So the fact that someone went through sexual abuse doesn't mean that the person must end up, for example, as a prostitute. Now, you'd be amazed how a lot of people use that as an excuse. But it's not. It's not good enough excuse. You can choose a different outcome. You can choose. So when you realize that I am responsible for my life, I determine what actions I take. I determine what the outcome of my life will be. When you understand that, you see that at the end of the day, everything is in your hands. It's all in your hands. But it begins with your mind. If you're willing to open your mind up to see that there is another way, because there is always another way. For me personally, coming into this space in my life, it took a while. It took a while for me, and the reason is because my mind wasn't open enough to see what was possible. I thought that the only option I had was to continue to jump from one relationship to another relationship in the hopes that someone would heal me, in the hopes that someone else would see what was broken in me and fix me, right? But coming to that realization of, no, I have to make that decision to work with God to fix me. It is my work to do. So don't outsource your life to another person. Don't sit and wait for someone to swoop in and save you. You can have a different outcome. There are stories upon stories upon stories of people who ideally could have said, oh, because this happened, so therefore this must be my outcome. No, Oprah Winfrey was also sexually abused as a child. And she talks about the fact that she also didn't have a good relationship with her mother. Now, Oprah could have decided that because of that, I'm just going to be a nobody. I'm just going to be there and just waste my life and just not do anything important with my life. She could have decided to make that. She could have made that decision. But she chose to rise above it. She chose to use that to propel her to where she is today. So you can have a different outcome. You can choose something different. You can choose to rise above that heartbreak. You can choose to rise above that failure. You don't have to let it define you. But at the end of the day, the ball is in your court. It's up to you. You decide. You have to partner with God. God is not going to come down and do the work for you. You have to do the work. The Bible says Paul plants, Apollos waters, but God gives the increase. Meaning there's a planting that needs to be done. There's a watering that needs to be done. Then God gives the increase. There is nothing for God to increase if you don't choose to plant. There is nothing for God to increase if you plant and you don't water. It's gonna die. So for as long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest will not cease. There is nothing to harvest if you haven't planted the seed. And planting the seed is the action. It's the step that you take. It's you taking ownership for your life. Just imagine a farmer. A farmer says, oh, I don't think I hope somebody will come and plant these seeds for me this planting season. I really hope and pray that God will send somebody to come and plant these seeds on this my soil, on this my farm, this planting season. He's going to be waiting for a long time. Because guess what? He has the seeds. He has the farm. He has the soil. All he needs to do is go and plant. If he's waiting for someone to come and plant it for him, he's going to be waiting forever. So what I'm trying to say, I think the essence of everything I'm trying to say today is you need to take your life in your hands. Decide today that I will take responsibility for my life. The fact that my mother was like this or my father was like this does not mean that I too must be like that. I can choose. The fact that my mother treated my father like this or my father treated my mother like that doesn't mean that I will treat my spouse this way. I can choose. I can choose to do better. I can choose to do the work that needs to be done. The fact that I grew up seeing relationships like this, the fact that I grew up seeing that, the fact that everybody that I know around me has a broken home doesn't mean that I also must have a broken home. I can choose a different outcome. The fact that nobody in my entire lineage completed university, how much more having a master's degree, doesn't mean that I should sit and cross my leg and say, well, after all, nobody in my entire lineage went to school. You can choose a different outcome. You can choose. The fact that you went through sexual abuse, the fact that that's bad, what happened to you is bad, but it doesn't have to be a crutch that you hold on to for the rest of your life. You don't have to let that cripple you. You can choose. You can choose. The fact that someone ended a relationship, someone walked out of the relationship, doesn't mean that my life will end. I can choose. You can choose. You can choose to win. You can choose to rise above it. You can choose to do better. But it all begins by you, first of all, understanding that the power is in your hands. I always say that maturity is the ability to take responsibility. You know that you are maturing when you finally believe and accept that this is your life. You determine the outcome. And the clock is ticking. Every single day, every single moment, we're getting older. 20 years from now is not that far away if you think of it. If you think about it. 20 years from now is not that far away. Because if you think back to maybe for those of you who were born maybe in the early 2000s or the late 1990s, how long ago was that? For those of you who finished university maybe in 2014, how long ago was that? More than 10 years. Sometimes I think about it, I'm like, oh my God. Am I that old? Because when I'm like, oh yeah, so when I got my bachelor's degrees, like when I got my bachelor's degree like 10 years ago, I'm like, oh my God, 10 years ago? 10 years ago? A decade ago? How? How did we get here? But yeah, the clock is ticking. Time is not stopping. So do the right thing now. Get up, wash your face, and choose to win. Take responsibility for your life. Oh, I wish that you would take responsibility for your life. It's a hard thing to do, but that is adulthood. Understanding nobody will do the work for you. Nobody. If you want to lose weight, guess what? Nobody will lose the weight for you. You have to put in the work. You want to grow in your career? Guess what? You will have to put in the work. You will have to take those courses. You will have to sign up for those networking events. You will have to do the work. You want to be a better parent than your parents were? Guess what? You have to do the work. You have to invest in knowledge. You want to be a better partner? Guess what? You have to do the work. You will have to invest in knowledge. You will have to take steps to ensure that that marriage or that relationship is healthy. You have to do the work. You can't outsource your responsibility to anybody else. You can't outsource your life to anybody else. You can't. The funny thing about life is that you can't delegate it to another person to save you. Do the work. Choose to do the work. Choose to take responsibility for your life. That's the greatest mindset shift you could ever have. Because every other thing stands on it. So yeah, take charge of your life. All right, guys. So that's all I wanted to come on here and share today. Quite short this time around, which is good. But yeah, I hope you learned something. If there's anything that you like to share or your thoughts, your comments, just put it all down in the comment section. Tell me, I want to know, what is the greatest mindset shift that you've had? Yeah, put it all down in there. I look forward to reading all you have to say. Right. Thank you so much for watching if you're watching this, and thank you for listening if you're listening to this. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please go ahead and subscribe. I like to share wholesome content that you'll definitely find valuable. Okay, so go ahead and subscribe if you haven't, and click on the notification bell so that you are alerted whenever I have a new video up. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I wish you all of the best. I wish you all the very, 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 very best. And I'll see you in my next episode. Bye.